Hey bro, today we have a new story. Not about a couple, not about credit cards or payday loans. Today, went about one guy. His name is Dan. He's 28. He works in IT, rents an apartment, drives a decent car, saves money. Everything like normal people. He was sure his life was under control. Until one evening, when friends invited him to a casino. He went just to check it out, because he was bored, because he thought he knew when to stop. Spoiler, he didn't. Today we're breaking down how a regular guy with a good job and money blew everything in 6 months. His savings, his credit cards, his relationships, his sleep, his peace of mind. How he got into debt with shady people and what came out of it. A story about gambling, fear, shame, and coming back to life. Let's go. The problem. Dan had been living in the city for 3 years. Stable job, steady paycheck, his own routine. Friends, gym, a couple of trips a year. He thought he was doing everything right. One day friends said, "Hey, we're going to the casino, come. It'll be fun." Dan agreed, just to keep them company. Bought $100 in chips. Just to try. The first time he won, 50 turned into 150. Adrenaline shot through his body. He bet again, and won again. His eyes lit up. It felt like he'd found a way to make money fast, easy and simple. No office, no tasks, no waiting for a paycheck. He got in his car thinking, I can control this. 2 weeks later, he went to the casino alone. Lost 400. He didn't get upset, just figured he got unlucky. The next week, he lost 800. He wanted to win it back. Then another 1,500. And he realized this wasn't entertainment anymore, like he just couldn't stop. Roulette, cards, slots. He tried everything. Every time he told himself, this is the last one. But it never was. Within a couple of months, his savings were gone. He blew through $10,000 without even noticing how the weeks flew by. The consequences. Dan became a different person. He stopped joking, stopped calling friends, stopped going to the gym. At work, people saw him with puffy eyes and an empty stare. He lied about having insomnia. Debt started piling up. He realized that without money, he couldn't even live, let alone gamble. Rent, food, gas, everything needed payment, and he'd lost everything he had. So he started looking for a way out, and he found one. A guy who gave money fast, no questions asked, just a signature. No banks, no checks. Just meet, get cash, sign a paper. The interest was insane, but Dan wasn't thinking about interest. He thought he'd win it back and pay everything off in a week. He borrowed $5,000, then another $5,000, then more. The total debt passed $20,000. And that's when it started. The calls came. Not from banks, not from collection agencies, but people with specific questions. Where's the money? When are you paying? Don't make us come over. He was afraid to open the door, afraid to answer calls, afraid to leave the house. One day he got a photo of his car with a note. "We know where you live." He didn't sleep for days. He got fired from work for missing shifts and losing focus. He didn't care. He sat in the dark, scrolling casino sites even though he had no money to deposit. He was broken. He thought about leaving or just disappearing, because admitting what he'd done to anyone was scarier than the threats. Meeting the expert. At some point, he texted an old friend, just, "Hey, how are you?" the friend replied. They texted for a couple of days, and then Dan broke down and spilled everything. He wrote, "I'm screwed. I need help. I don't know what to do." They met. Dan came to a park, sat on a bench, and spoke almost in a whisper. He talked about the casino, the losses, the money he borrowed from not very good people, the fear, the firing, the emptiness. He said, "I don't want to live like this, but I don't know how to get out. I'm afraid they'll come. And I'm also afraid that if I get money, I'll go gamble again." Dan wasn't asking for money. He was asking for help. He wanted someone to tell him what to do. Solution, Part 1. Addiction. First step, he went to a therapist because I explained to him that this isn't about money, it's about the brain, about dopamine. about the habit of escaping reality, about the illusion of control. He started going to therapy once a week. There he learned that gambling isn't weakness. It's an addiction, that it needs to be treated as seriously as alcoholism. He learned to notice when the urge to gamble appeared, and instead he'd go for a walk, listen to music, write down what he was feeling. He blocked all casino sites on his phone and computer, asked a friend to set a password for access to those sites. Sometimes he wanted to relapse, but he held on, because he had a goal. Not just to stop gambling, but to become the person he used to be. Solution. Part 2. Finances. At the same time, we sat down and laid out his situation, calculated all income and expenses. Dan got a new job, simpler, with lower pay. About $4,000 a month. We built a budget so he could see where his money was going. I explained the rule: 50% for living, 30% for debt and obligations, and 20% to start saving. He moved into a room with roommates instead of his $1,400 apartment. The savings were significant. Dan contacted the guy he borrowed from. He said, "I'm out of work, but I'm willing to pay. Give me time." And they made a deal. Not perfect terms, but no threats. He started paying back little by little every month, $1,000 to $1,200. For 8 months, he lived very frugally, but he paid. He didn't gamble. He just worked and waited for this stretch to end. The result: over a year passed. Dan paid off all his debt. Completely. He paid back everything he borrowed and stopped being afraid of calls. His credit score started recovering. He still goes to therapy, but once a month instead of every week. He moved back into his own apartment, found a new IT job. Better than before the crisis. He has savings, small but real, and he no longer looks toward casinos. He didn't become a millionaire, but he stopped lying, stopped being afraid, and stopped running. He forgave himself. He didn't forget the past, and he accepted it, learned from it, and moved on. He laughs again, goes to the gym again, hangs out with friends again. He told me one thing: I realized that the biggest win is waking up and not being afraid that someone will knock on the door today. Advice. Text on screen. If you recognized yourself in this story, remember these things. Addiction is treatable. You're not weak. See a therapist. Debt to shady people is dangerous. Don't hide. Negotiate. Track every dollar. You don't know where your money goes. Don't try to win it back. The money is gone. Accept it. Find someone to talk to. A friend, a therapist, a family member. Conclusion. Dan survived. He didn't just survive, he rebuilt his life from scratch. He lost everything he had, but he found himself. That's worth more than any money. If this story hits you, like and save this video. Rewatch it when you feel the urge to gamble or borrow from shady people. Subscribe to the channel. In the next episode, we'll break down the story of a guy who invested $20,000 in a friend's business and lost it all. And yeah, bro, don't gamble. Don't borrow from strangers. It always ends badly. You can rebuild everything. Take care of yourself. Good luck. Peace.